I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's newscast, Israel reaches out to the UK following the Manchester terror attack. A mind-boggling new historical discovery is made in Israel, and we'll reveal how an Israeli medical breakthrough is going to change the face of ALS. Stay tuned for the latest news in Israel. England held a nationwide minute of silence at 11 o'clock this morning in memory of the 22 people killed and 120 others wounded in Monday's terror attack in Manchester. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has now spoken with Britain's Prime Minister Theresa May to offer both condolences and help. The Israeli leader telephoned his British counterpart to convey sorrow on behalf of the Jewish nation to the British people. He also reassured May that Israel is ready to provide any assistance necessary for the joint war against terrorism. Britain has raised its terror alert to the highest maximum level. The Manchester assailant has been identified as a 22-year-old Muslim, Salman Abedi. The British citizen of Libyan descent detonated an improvised explosive device packed with nails and other metal objects as concertgoers were leaving an arena after a performance by American singer Ariana Grande. The Islamic State has claimed credit for the bombing. British intelligence believes the suspect was likely to have belonged to a larger network and are searching for those who built his deadly bomb. At least 7 people in England and Libya, including 2 of Abedi's brothers and his father, have been arrested in connection with the attack. The Israeli people have issued numerous statements of support with the British public and have offered to help out in any way possible. An estimated 80,000 people celebrated Jerusalem Day this week by marching through the Old City to the Western Wall. That's about double the number of participants from previous years, so it's no surprise that security was heavier than usual. There were also concerns of possible violence after the parade was permitted to wind all the way around the Old City walls for the first time ever. The new route meant passing through Arab neighborhoods. The annual event is known as a flag march, and it hasn't been without controversy. In past years, some ultra-nationalist youth chanted anti-Arab slurs, but ahead of this year's march, police made it clear that neither physical nor verbal violence would be tolerated. Some clashes did erupt at the Damascus Gate entrance when Palestinian, Israeli, and American protesters tried to block the route. But they were quickly dispersed by security forces, and 15 Jews were reportedly arrested for attempting to pray on the Temple Mount. While Jews are allowed to visit the holiest site in Judaism, they can't worship there since it's also the 3rd holiest place in Islam and provokes Muslim anger. Until Israel's victory in the 1967 Six-Day War, Jews were completely banned from visiting the Old City under Jordanian rule. Palestinians want East Jerusalem as the capital of their future state, but Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has rejected any possibility that the city will ever again be redivided.
יישארו לעד בריבונות ישראל. התיקון לעוול ההיסטורי שהושג בגבורת לוחמינו לפני יובל שנים יעמוד לנצח נצחים.
Sadly, even half a century after Israel reunified Jerusalem, the Holy City remains deeply divided by politics, religion, and ethnicity, with many residents struggling against grim economic realities. Jerusalem is a world treasure that's been fought over for millennia. It's also one of the poorest areas in Israel. About 45% of Jerusalem's nearly 900,000 inhabitants live below the poverty line, compared with 20% of Israel's national population. The most impoverished groups are Palestinians, who comprise a little more than a third of the population, and ultra-Orthodox Jews, who make up about a fifth. Both favor large families and are the fastest growing sector in the country. They're also underemployed since many religious Jewish men dedicate themselves to Bible study and few Palestinian women have jobs. Jerusalem residents also complain that despite their poorer status, municipal and business taxes in the city are among Israel's highest. The bright spot on the horizon is that between 2012 and 2015, high-tech investment in Jerusalem more than quadrupled to $243 million. Israeli authorities have now launched an ambitious 5-year plan to entice even more startups to move to the capital, all on a mission to promote more businesses and expand tourism. Jordan is absolutely furious that a group of Jews managed to pray on the Temple Mount during Jerusalem Day and is now accusing Israel of dishonoring the Islamic mosque. Officials in Amman issued a scathing statement, falsely claiming that the occupying Israeli authorities allowed Jewish extremists to storm the Al-Aqsa Mosque. The Jordanian government alleges the incident violated the sanctity of the mosque and offended the feelings of Muslims around the world. No mention was made that the 15 Jews who prayed at the site were arrested. A Jordanian minister and government spokesman are warning Israel that Muslims consider the Temple Mount to be solely Islamic and are threatening that any changes in the status quo could have severe consequences on a peace treaty between the two countries. Even though Israeli leaders have repeatedly denied any plans to alter arrangements at the holy site, Arab rumors of such plans have been used to incite widespread violence and terrorism. The American administration is reportedly pushing Israel to transfer parts of the West Bank to the Palestinian jurisdiction. According to the report, the U.S. sees the economic incentives that the Israeli Security Cabinet approved on Sunday as insufficient. They want areas in the northern West Bank or Shomron region to be transferred from Area C to Area B. Area C under the Oslo Accords is under full Israeli control and has an Israeli population of around 400,000. It's the only part of the West Bank where Israelis can reside. Area B is under the administrative control of the PA, with the IDF maintaining security responsibility. The Prime Minister's office is denying Channel 10's report, and in a separate report, Channel 10 says that Israel's National Security Council is thinking of transferring 2 Arab neighborhoods in Jerusalem that lie across the security barrier to a new local council. Under the plan, the neighborhoods would remain under Israeli control and receive their funding for municipal services directly from the state and not the city. U.S. President Donald Trump may have already left Israel, but his visit is still the talk of the town. Joining us now in the studio to discuss the implications of the American leader's trip is Ambassador Yosef Livne, who served in New Zealand, El Salvador, the Bahamas, Mexico, and Belize, and Ambassador Zalman Shoval, the former Israeli ambassador to the United States. Thank you both for coming in.
Thank you, Natasha.
All right, so let's begin. You know, there are reports that the United States is now pushing Israel to transfer parts of the West Bank to the Palestinian jurisdiction. Is this true? And if so, what could the implications be?
Well, I don't think that there's any pressure to do anything before negotiations actually start, except for goodwill gestures, which Israel did and may add some other ones as well. But leaving or handing over administration to the Palestinians would be part of an agreement, and the negotiations haven't even started. So I wouldn't go astray by, from so many rumors coming one way or another. Everybody tries to push his own interests in that respect. I think the importance, first of all, the real importance of this trip or of this visit was both in Saudi Arabia and Israel. You must take these two things together. The common denominator was and is the jeopardy, the danger from Iran, both to the moderate Arab world and to Israel. And I think President Trump made a very important statement in Jerusalem the other day. His administration will not allow the Iranians to get the bomb. That's really the most important point from Israel's point of view. As far as the Palestinian-Israel issue is concerned, well, maybe this will be a start of a new departure. Hopefully it will. Israel certainly wants it. Israel wanted it before, but we faced a Palestinian partner who didn't understand that compromises are mutual, have to be mutual.
Now let's talk about, the U.S.'s involvement in the process, the peace process. Do you think Israel is now more or less susceptible to pressure from the United States when it comes to making these concessions?
I don't know if the word susceptible is the correct word. I think Israel has always listened carefully to what the U.S. has to say, and usually we try to find a common ground. In this case, I think that we are still waiting to understand exactly what it is that the U.S. administration is hoping to achieve.
Was that not made clear by this trip? Was there anything that was made clear by this trip?
Yes, and with this I agree totally with Ambassador Shoval's assessment. The most important thing was the unequivocal statement by the President of the United States that he will not allow Iran to become a nuclear power.
Which I think you're perfectly right. This was also the most important point he made in Riyadh. And therefore you have to see these two visits in conjuncture.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think we are seeing a push for there to be a stronger relationship between Israel and the Gulf Arab states, given this common fear and the common threat of Iran.
Right.
Now, let's talk a little bit about Jerusalem Day, which is a huge event here in Israel. Not everybody knows that Israelis celebrate that. For the first time ever, the Jerusalem Day flag march was allowed to wind around all of the walls of the old city, which is not what has happened in past years, and it passed through Arab neighborhoods. The move has provoked a lot of anger, but is this something that is different? Does it stand out? How can Israel promote a truly unified Jerusalem?
Well, obviously, Israel will have to do more than it does today. We have to bring up the standard of living in East Jerusalem. There's no doubt about that. If they are equally privileged citizens, not citizens of Israel, but certainly residents of Jerusalem, they must get all the facilities. It's in our interest, not just in their interest. But I think, and I hark back now to Trump, his visit to the Western Wall, which is after all the last remaining wall of the last temple, has a very important political and moral and symbolic significance, because this is not just a religious thing, it's more a national thing. Here, an American president, whether he comes as a private person or he's always the president, he says, look, this is the symbol of the connection of the Jewish people, not only with their country, but with its capital, the city of Jerusalem. And that was important because the Palestinians tried to deny reality. For the Palestinians, I mean, they make fake history. And that statement, I think, at the wall was even more important than the speech which he made in Israel.
And the Israeli Prime Minister didn't go on that trip with him. It was a private event. What do you think was the reaction of Israelis in regards to that decision?
I don't think Israelis spend too much time thinking about the fact whether the Prime Minister accompanied the President or not. Again, there's a lot of symbolism. International relations and diplomacy is loaded with symbolism. Here and anywhere else in the world, when the President of the United States goes to the Western Wall, he says, for me, this is part and parcel of who Israel is. Whether he recognizes it as an integral part of Israel or not is irrelevant now. The image of a president standing at the wall, mind you, standing alone, there's a lot of impact in the picture, in the image of the president standing there, and of course, his wife, his daughter, and his son-in-law. It sends a message.
Yeah, I mean, just watching this video myself, you can't help but wonder what was on the president's mind in that moment. Well, Ambassador, thank you both so much for coming in.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
Former Israeli spy Jonathan Pollard is not having the best week. A federal court has just rejected his appeal to get some of his restrictive parole conditions lifted. The Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals issued the judgment yesterday, just a week after Pollard's lawyer made the case that the terms violate his religious freedoms. Part of his parole terms require him to wear a GPS monitoring device at all times, forcing the Orthodox Jew to violate Shabbat by using electricity. And his lawyer argues that the restrictive computer monitoring he must submit to prevents companies from hiring him. Nevertheless, the court has rejected easing his parole conditions, arguing that he continues to pose a threat to United States intelligence. Pollard served around 30 years in federal prison after pleading guilty to charges of conspiracy to commit espionage. He had been selling classified information to Israel. Israel is a world leader in turning our salty seas into refreshing drinking water, and now the Jewish state is helping to quench the thirst of lots of other nations. The entire process of filtering salt water was first pioneered by an Israeli scientist in the 1960s. Thanks to ingenious techniques since that time, today about 60% of Israel's domestic water needs are met through desalination. With the additional developments of drip irrigation, water recycling, and sustainable water conservation policies, Israel's the only place on the planet where the desert is actually shrinking. That's particularly impressive amid warmer conditions due to global climate change. The same amazing company that built all 3 of Israel's desalination plants is now sharing its expertise. More than 40% of the global population suffers from water scarcity, and so far the Israeli IDE Technologies company has built more than 400 new plants in 40 different nations capable of providing 3 million cubic meters of drinkable water around the world every day. It looks like Israel's going to have to change its nickname from the startup nation to the desalination nation. Has a nice ring to it, doesn't it? Running a small business isn't always easy, especially when you're navigating the web. Well, one Israeli startup called Retargeting is on a mission to change that, and joining us now is the company's co-founder and CEO, Etgar Spivak, with The Scoop. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for inviting me.
No, I love the name of this company, Retargeting. But first, before we get to what the company does, let's talk about some of the major problems surrounding small e-commerce merchants and small business owners on the web.
If we look on the 2 major marketing issues small business have, one is acquisition, is having the traffic, the visitor to the site.
Right.
And the second one is retention, to make people buy, to convert those visitors into buyers.
Right.
And when we see that right now, according to researchers, more than 60% of the users who visit a site don't order in the first time. They come, they see the product, they window shopping, they go back, they talking with their friends, and only then they decide to buy.
So what is retargeting, and how did you come up with this name?
Retargeting, it means retargeting into messaging.
Okay.
It means bringing the user back through messaging platforms. What we do is we help small business e-commerce site to turn their visitor into customers and to turn them one-time customers into repeated customers.
Yeah, multiple. Yeah.
Into multiple purchase customers.
Multiple purchase customers.
Multiple purchase customers. And what we're doing is we're learning the user behavior in the site. We add that to the normal actions that the website owner do all the time, like changing price, updating the inventory, creating new sale for a specific product. We combine everything with different type of users in the site, and we found the precise message to the relevant user in the perfect timing, and everything is being done automatically.
So this is amazing because this really provides an outlet through which business owners can understand what they need to do to change their business to really make sure that they're going to get more purchases. Now, why did you choose to develop this startup? I mean, it's very interesting.
It happened actually because of something very personal that happened to me. I work with a client who had a bag store, and I gave her consulting, and in the evening I talked with my wife, and she saw the site. She immediately go and she saw a beautiful yellow bag. She saw this bag and, wow, it's beautiful, I really want to buy it. And 2 weeks later I go and I see her open a new bag, and it wasn't the same bag. She said, I bought it from Amazon. And I said, was it cheaper? No. Do you think it looks better? No. So why did you buy it and not from my client? Because I just sat in front of the TV and they sent me a message and I felt like I want to buy it. And in that moment, I go and I started looking for a simple solution for my client that she can do it. And I couldn't find it.
Wow.
And then I saw, if we talk that the big one, the Amazon, the eBay, the Etsy, they can spend tens of millions of dollars in order to find this specific message.
Right.
And this small e-commerce site, they can't. And we see that the big one, they become bigger, and the small one,
Stay small.
they stay small or they disappear. And this is exactly our vision. We want to democratize the internet. We want to democratize the e-commerce economy.
Well, it seems like you've created a solution that's going to be incredibly helpful to people who have small businesses and might even encourage others to open up their own small businesses on the internet. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
The number of people aged 60 and up is skyrocketing across the world. Israeli high-tech firms are now coming up with actual robots to not only help keep our seniors healthy, but to also add a whole lot of fun to the aging process. Studies predict there will be 1.4 billion seniors by the year 2030, which is more than double the number today. By 2050, it's going to jump even higher to projected 2.1 billion. The Israeli intuition robotics firm has developed an artificial intelligence-based robot companion that can actually keep older adults active and engaged with their family members. The Up and Ride robotics company has created a device that helps people isolated by paralysis to actually stand up and move again. Israel has long been on the cutting edge of combining cybertech with communication and analytical software, putting the Jewish state in an ideal position to become a world leader in the digital health arena. Other great inventions include the Kaitera system to remotely monitor the elderly through wristband sensors so they can remain in their own homes as long as possible. Other Israeli high-tech solutions help older people keep track of their medications and to get more physical activity. It looks like you might want to start considering living out your golden years here in Israel. All right, this is some news that I'm so excited to share. Remember the ALS Bucket Challenge to fundraise money for research about the disease? Well, Israeli scientists have just discovered a breakthrough treatment for ALS. ALS is a progressive neurodegenerative disease that affects nerve cells and the spinal cord. It's the devastating illness that affected theoretical physicist Stephen Hawking. At Ben-Gurion University in southern Israel, scientists are fighting it. Dr. Rachel Lichtenstein has found a way to slow the progress of the debilitating disease by slowing the activity of the deadly cells which attack the central nervous system. Lichtenstein says she's found a way to stop them from attacking and killing healthy brain cells, and she's taken part of an existing FDA-approved drug used to treat cancer and made a new molecule that fights ALS. Apparently, lab mice have been responding well to the treatment, seeing a significant rise in life expectancy. Lichtenstein hopes that since the drug is already approved by the FDA, it'll hit the market faster than most new drugs with less preclinical testing. And that's not all. Researchers at the university think that the drug won't just treat ALS, it could have major implications on the life expectancy of Alzheimer's and Parkinson's patients. Right now, there is no cure for ALS, and a diagnosis means a death sentence. Could a cure be on the way? It's been an exciting time in Jerusalem over the last few days, and the Israel Antiquities Authority had a big surprise in store for the 50th anniversary of the Six-Day War. Joining us now is ILTV reporter Max Kaiser with more on the story. Thank you so much for coming in, Max.
Thanks for having me.
I know that you're a huge history buff, so this is exciting, right?
Oh yeah, I'm a big history nerd.
Right, so tell us a little bit about what discovery was made.
Well, these researchers excavating the city of David site in Jerusalem found siege weapons dating back to the Great Revolt against the Roman Empire. It's like
That's
2,000
years ago.
Yeah.
That's huge, right? And so what does this tell us about Jerusalem? Is this news? Is this something that we didn't know before?
Well, we had accounts of the destruction of the temple from Flavius Josephus, and what we're finding is that just the details he writes, we're finding the archaeological evidence for that.
Wow, that's amazing. All right, so let's check out the report that you did on this.
For sure.
According to eyewitness accounts, it was a terrible sight. The temple lay in rubble, with wild animals living in the ruins. The rebellious population was put to the sword, or sold off in chains, ending a half-millennium of Jewish autonomy in their homeland. This was a scene in Jerusalem 2,000 years ago at the end of the Jewish Revolt, and archaeologists excavating in the city of David just south of the Temple Mount have found arrowheads and siege weapons from that tragic time. They've unveiled these artifacts now, just in time for the 50-year anniversary of the Israeli reunification of the city. The weapons were found in the remains of a Roman-style street constructed in the last years of the Second Temple. The arrowheads were used by the besieged Jewish rebels on the Temple Mount. The siege weapons belonged to the 70,000 soldiers of the Roman Legion. The Great Revolt went on for some 8 years, and for a time, the rebels were successful, taking control of Jerusalem and much of the region. But ultimately, as recorded by Jewish turncoat and historian Flavius Josephus, the Jews were no match for the might of the Roman Empire. The war, and the Bar Kokhba revolt some 60 years later, marked the end of large-scale Jewish presence in the land of Israel until the 1800s. The archaeologists at the City of David project hope that continuing excavations at the site will give us valuable information about the twilight days of Roman Judea.
The Hebrew word of the day is brought to you by IDC Summer Ulpan, open to everyone.
And now for our Hebrew word of the day. From developing a new medical breakthrough for ALS to using technology to keep the elderly healthier, Israel is a center for world-class treatment. So today's word is tipul, which means treatment in Hebrew. The Israeli healthcare system is pretty different from America's. It's public and it's a lot easier to get the tipul you need. Granted, you may end up waiting on a long line or two, but you'll get it. Just keep in mind you can't necessarily change how people treat you on a personal level here, so you might might need to have a few tricks in store to get the kind of tipul you prefer. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight will be clear to partly cloudy with a low of 63 or 17 degrees Celsius. And tomorrow is expected to be fair with no significant change in temperatures. And a high of 78 or 26 degrees Celsius. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.58 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv. I'm Natasha Kirchak, and thanks for watching.